Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my personal podcast tour of the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe. Charles Laughton, like Lon Chaney, only made a handful of what might be classed as horror films in his enormously varied career gallery. Both actors achieved renown in the same part, Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Laughton's 1939 version is arguably the greatest interpretation to date. Despite their other shared trait of great versatility, Laughton managed to escape the misleading label of horror actor that forever followed Chaney. This may be largely due to Chaney's tragic death in 1930, when sound was in its infancy. Much of his huge output of silent films is lost, increasing the vividness of his brilliance as Hugo's endearing monster, as Eric, the Phantom of the Opera, and his dual roles in the still-missing London After Midnight. Laughton was fortunate in only having moonlighted from his esteemed stage work to dabble in silent shorts written by H.G. Wells and British quota quickie features before making an immediate and long-lasting impact in Hollywood just as the technology for talkies began to be viable. His good fortune in the profession nonetheless connected him with a number of talents who became famous in horror cinema. Laughton was a Yorkshireman, born in Scarborough to hotelier parents. He was schooled at the strict Jesuit College of Stonyhurst, whose regime instilled in him lifelong feelings of Catholic guilt, which cannot have made his emerging homosexuality any easier to bear in an already repressive era. Being the eldest of three boys, Laughton was primed to take over the family business of the Grand Pavilion Hotel by training in London, arranged through his notoriously upwardly mobile mother Eliza at the very posh Claridge's. Charles gained his first sampling of the delights of the West End theatre world, appreciating the work of actors such as Gerald du Maurier and other names who he would meet as hotel guests. The young man's work experience was cut short, though, when he signed up to fight in World War I. He eschewed the opportunity for the officer's rank that his social position would have allowed him, having no appetite for a leading role in that sphere. He joined up as the lowest rank of private, and fought until he was gassed in battle during the very last week of conflict. The result was a lingering double legacy for life of throat problems and a new somberness that would never quite leave the formerly light-hearted boy. This dark shadow was common to returning ex-soldiers, something J.B. Priestley would allude to in the Old Dark House's source novel. Laughton's awakened appetite for the stage led him to amateur roles with the Scarborough Players while running the family hotel. This crystallized his burgeoning ambition for the actor's life. So, at the relatively advanced age for a drama student of 24, he was auditioned successfully at London's Royal Academy of Dramatic Art before a panel including Claude Rains, thus establishing a meaningful professional link with the eventual leading man of Universal's The Invisible Man, directed also by James Whale, and their 1943 remake of The Phantom of the Opera. Laughton was a focused, reclusive student, not wasting a second in learning from what was only a one-year course back then. His character detail and inventiveness was becoming extraordinary, molding the plump clay of his physique and unprepossessing face into memorable manifestations of his inner creativity. Laughton's work was getting noticed in student productions, even in parts not wholly suited to him. He earned this prescient remark backstage after Pygmalion by none other than George Bernard Shaw. "You were perfectly dreadful as Higgins, but I predict a brilliant career for you within a year." The renowned Shavian perceptiveness was bang on target. Within that year, the ex-student was directed by the illustrious Theodore Komisarjevsky in Gogol's The Inspector General, opposite his recent tutor Claude Rains at London's Barnes Theatre. After acquitting himself well in 2 Chekhov plays, Laughton then made his West End debut cameoing in Lilium at the Duke of York's with Ivor Novello, who had played the title role of the Lodger for Hitchcock on screen in 1927. Laughton was already creating a hugely impressive start to his career. Indeed, in Simon Callow's excellent biography, Charles Laughton, A Difficult Actor, he notes that the year after graduating, in 1927, the actor notched up 7 featured roles in 7 West End productions. Crucially, this enabled him to bypass the lower levels of cheapjack repertory, which can lead to bad habits in technique. He was accustomed to working with the very best, and would never sink to anything less than fellow thoroughbreds from here onwards. An expectation that wasn't always the most understanding when dealing with others. Despite such a busy schedule, it wasn't all work with Laughton. While in the play Pro-Hack, he found mutual solace in a relationship with actress Elsa Lanchester, with whom he would share the rest of his life. She captivated him with her bohemian sensibility and good humor, as she would in thrilling audiences famously in 1935 as The Bride of Frankenstein, under James Whale's direction. Whale made another horror connection with Laughton's prodigious workload in The Grand Guignol, A Man with Red Hair, a frightening play detailing the bitter revenge of Laughton's character Crispin upon a world shunning him for his ugliness. Whale was a sometime actor still at this point, and played Laughton's son. While it sounds like a more psychotic version of his later Quasimodo, the adaptation of Hugh Walpole's text was by Ben Levy, who would rework Priestley's Benighted into The Old Dark House. A critic for Theatre World praised Laughton's first scene with echoes of the post-traumatic stress disorder, called shell shock back then, that haunted the later Whale film. His entrance is like the first whiff of poison gas we were once familiar with, a thing so evil and malignant that it can paralyze one's power to combat it by its apparent harmlessness. 1931 was the dramatic turning point for Laughton in both his professional and private life. The West End stage run of Payment Deferred was the hit that took the couple across the Atlantic to New York exposure, and from there to the offer of a Hollywood film debut. However, before he and Elsa could take advantage of this, someone else's more sinister opportunism would have to be faced. During rehearsals in London, Laughton's secretly homosexual life had made him the victim of attempted blackmail by one of his pickups. A policeman became involved in the incident, and an utterly ashamed Laughton was forced to confess his double life to Elsa. She was shocked and felt betrayed by his deceit, yet after asking the truth about the story, from then on, to her credit, never discussed his sexual orientation with him again. They remained a steadfast couple, but with unspoken quicksand in their marriage never to be entered into from that day. Although Laughton would never reconcile his hidden demons, he at least had plenty of public success from channeling his energies. When his Broadway work led to a Hollywood contract, he seized the opportunity lustily, sensing this was his medium from the beginning. The possibility for retakes suited his perfectionism, and the care taken by each studio department allowed the highest level of craftsmanship to be provided, and indulged for a demanding artist. His first Hollywood role was supposed to be for Paramount in Ben Levy's The Devil and the Deep, but when that script proved unfinished, they loaned him to Universal, where James Whale was now ready to direct his old friend in The Old Dark House, as we shall see in the next episode. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe.